What up, meatheads? This is Travis, American Butcher, and this is the Meat Block Podcast, and this is episode 50. Now, when I started this podcast, I never knew what it would turn into and how it would develop and the people I'd meet and things like that. And I am certainly humbled and surprised that it's has the success it does and that we've made it this far. That being said, stop what you're doing, go rate us on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and please leave us a comment. Now, to celebrate our 50th episode, I figured what better way to have this successful milestone than bringing in superstar Instagram butcher Jared Standing, owner of Standing Meats, located in beautiful Los Angeles, California, a town I have worked in, lived in the town where I met my beautiful wife. He's on Melrose, which is located in West Hollywood. I used to live on Miracle Mile. This is insanely close. And my old shop that I worked at used to be on Fairfax. From his shop, you are walking distance from La Brea Tar Pits, the Lamont Art Gallery, in the corner where Biggie Smalls got shot, as well as Cantor's Jewish Deli. There are several high-concept butcher shops catering the community in this area. There are several Whole Foods markets and other natural grocery stores. In this episode, we discuss what puts Standing Meats in the front of all this competition, as well as his journey and his expectations for the future, and advice for other people who want to become butchers or open up a butcher shop. So without any further delay, here's my interview with Jared Standing.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Good. I liked that we rescheduled it for the morning too, because I'm way better in the morning.
Okay.
I always get up like way earlier than I need to and get in here because it's just when I'm going to be the most productive. Mm-hmm. And then I crash around like 3.
Yeah.
Which at that point I still need to be here for 4 or 5 more hours.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that once I stop working, or once I used to hate taking breaks because I can never bounce back from a break. I learned how to hold my pee for hours,
Yeah. Wow, it's that bad. I can go pee, but if I stop and eat, then I'm like,
you're done.
It's just nap time. Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a long time to learn that it's to appreciate breaks and it's still something that I don't know if I really appreciate, but
yeah, I just fire up the induction burner next to my cutting block here and just eat while working, which the health department loves.
In processing facilities, we have these things called knife dips, where if you drop your knife on the ground or you get shit on your knife, you dip it in this thing that's always boiling water. Mm. And we would put cryovac pieces of meat in there and sous vide them.
Nice.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah. They weren't sous vide bags. I'm sure I'm full of PPA, PPB, all the bad stuff. But.
Yeah. That's funny. That reminds me, when I worked at Vaughn's, we would cook, quote unquote cook on the little hot plate for the little shrink wrapper.
Yeah.
Takes a long time.
Yeah. That how big is the seal bar on those things?
Well, it was the one where you wrap over the styrofoam boats.
Okay, so it has
it had like a 4x6 little plate, hot plate.
Yeah, because I've used those in custom exempt where they have a seat, a hot bar that just melts the thing.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Yeah, it has the bar too. Okay. But then it has a little hot plate to stick it all together on the bottom of the styrofoam. A long time ago.
What in your words is a butcher? I'm online and I'm seeing this. I don't know if it's infighting or whatnot, but I'm seeing a lot of people just waving their shit around, using the term butcher, meat cutter, etc. And what is it to you? Doesn't matter what.
Man, I'm not sure I could. I mean, I want to loosely define it as just, a professional meat person. Someone who cuts and sells meat. What I don't want to ever do is make a distinction between meat cutter and butcher. I think that might be like the infighting that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just semantics. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't actually help anyone or further what we're doing to like argue about I'm a butcher and you're just a meat cutter kind of thing. What a waste of time. And I think like how you and I have talked about before, you also, even if you wanted to specifically define this is what a butcher is, that would be relevant within the industry. And then you would tell somebody outside of our industry, I'm a butcher, and they might think that you kill animals, or they might think slaughterman, they might think the guy that they talk to at Whole Foods. It won't matter anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, meat professional.
I like that. I'm a purveyor of meats.
Yeah.
And then, would you call your, without being, we decided that we're going to use butcher or meat cutter as the same umbrella term, and you would call yourself a butcher? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I do call myself a butcher. And I guess since you mentioned the infighting, I wanted to talk about the butcher meat cutter distinction, but I still think there are some people selling meat who are not butchers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where to draw that line. There's a trend in LA, which is part of why this shop exists, of chefs opening restaurants, putting 100 square feet of whatever up front, and then calling it a butcher shop. And then I feel like that's where we get in the gray area.
Yeah, where they have like a case or something like that. Or...
Yeah, and it's basically just, it's just where they're holding their meat on display.
And then I guess this one may help define it. If you were to get a resume and someone put a butcher on it, what would you expect them to know?
For me specifically, I want to see retail experience. I think that's usually what I think of when I think of butcher. And even if it's not like in a retail shop talking over a counter, if I'm going to hire somebody, that's what I want, obviously. But you could be, I would still say it was retail if you were in the packing plant and you were breaking down carcasses and boxing them up and stuff. That's still like on that end. Yeah. So retail or wholesale. I guess if you say, I'm a butcher and I look at your resume and it's all kitchen work, that's where I'm going to feel iffy about you using the word butcher.
Okay. Yeah, I've callously said, but in a joking way, that all chefs want to be butchers, but no butchers want to be chefs.
I don't understand why anybody wants to be a chef, but I would agree with that. I would agree with that statement 100%. And actually lately I start to be, and it's because I probably am too sensitive and take things too personally, but I have such like a love and respect for our profession, especially for me, retail butchery, that people, usually this is chefs, who don't have retail experience, open retail shops. And then like, I'm almost personally offended that it's like, you think my job is so easy that you can do it. Yeah. Having never done it.
Oh yeah. No, I'll just tell this quick anecdote. I was doing, I was like a butcher for hire for a little bit when I was transitioning out of California. So I picked up some small butchering jobs where a chef got a whole pig and gave me a cut sheet and said he needed this for his menu and said I would do it. I just don't have the time, and then proceeded to watch me do it. So
yeah. So yeah, we know what was going on there.
Yeah. All right.
And it's not, I don't even want to sound that disparaging to chefs on that front, because it would, he probably could have done it, but it would have been a different kind of breakdown than you or I would do.
Yeah, and product probably would have gotten too warm, possibly, because it would have taken forever.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they wanted those fancy boneless trotters that you stuff with fancy meats.
Ooh. Oh yeah. The Zamponi
Yeah.
kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to do some tunnel boning and things like that. Very fun. Never done it before, but he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
How did you get into this industry? Because I know that you, from previous interviews and stalking you online, that you have you had different dietary decisions growing up, or not growing up, but throughout your life.
Yeah, totally. I guess how I got into it was like at first by accident, sort of fell into it, but then on the second round, which is my present situation, was very on purpose. Just after high school, I worked in a grocery store and just bagging groceries, was promoted to the meat department, loved it and found that I had a knack for it. Mm-hmm. But then also learned a ton about the meat system, the ugly part of the meat system that I'm now working against. After about 2 or 3 years of doing that, I quit. I just felt terrible about what I was doing, and stopped eating meat for many years, which I think what you were talking about, which was always a struggle for me because I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with meat eating. I just didn't want to support the system the way it was. And I thought that the best way at the time was to just abstain from eating meat. And then upon further reflection, realized that that's actually not putting any pressure on the meat industry to change. Mm-hmm. As somebody who doesn't eat meat, like your buying habits don't affect my business at all. But if you do eat meat and you buy from somebody else for some reason other than me, that does put some pressure on me to look at why that is.
Yeah.
So I started, seeking out better meat to buy, and then thought that even working in the industry toward that end would be a more effective way for me to make change.
By doing this podcast is that regardless of how you feel about a dietary decision, it's not going to... Dietary decisions are Western luxuries, and it's not going to change the big, like, as shitty as it sounds, like the animal displacement for a whole vegetable diet is also going to be horrific,
Totally. And I mean, we can take that even a step further to where, like, the kind of shop that I have, which is on the far end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm not feeding the world with this model. I just think that we do need the entire spectrum because we're all going to be somewhere in that gray area. Mm-hmm. But I mean, financial constraints being what they are for some people, this might not be an option. If you have one like single income and several kids and stuff, you're not, even my cheaper stuff like the ground beef that's priced to sell and stuff, that's still probably not a viable option.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I went off on a tangent in a previous episode because of just reading comments and talking to people, talking about how could people afford a smartphone but can't afford to eat ethically? And those are different priorities. And that, like, the person who's working 2 jobs, who is a single household getting her kids to and from someplace, doesn't need to feel bad because she has to stop at a store people don't agree with to feed her kids.
No, totally. I mean, that's apples and oranges, and I really hope that somebody gets the Apple iPhone pun in that. Yeah, I don't take that kind of hard stance. I'm a little less, I a little less lenient with other people in the industry. Mm-hmm. But as far as the consumer, like, I'm not ever going to give someone shit for shopping where they have to shop and not from me. Especially because, like I said, like, I know I'm far end of the spectrum, and that's very much on purpose. Partly, mainly just because it's what I believe in, but partly as a reaction to the current trends that I see.
Yeah. And also when people go into your shop, they're going to get one, the best quality that you can provide. It's going to be, they're going to eat it first with their eyes. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and it's going to look like a candy store for adults, essentially, your casework.
Yeah, a little less fancy than stuff I used to do, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And then
Good.
So so you were a butcher, you had these dietary decisions, you had this self realization, maybe let's call it that. Then you got back into the industry and you went from not cutting for 9 years or
I think about 9 years.
And then you ease back into it, and it seems like you just hit the ground running when you got back into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was that short gap in where you're just a sponge absorbing everything. When did you decide, like, one, I want to be back in this industry, two, I want to open a shop?
I always just throw myself completely into one thing. And that's not always for good. That can go both ways too. I don't multitask well. I get really obsessively focused on one thing at a time. And so I found this thing that I had a natural talent for. People would give me recognition for doing it. And so I guess, so I went from, if we can just run like a quick timeline, I got a job. I applied at Whole Foods, which was the best option I could find, as close to what I wanted to be doing, especially here in LA where there's nobody doing whole animal or anything. There was the shop that you were working at. But at that time you couldn't just get a job there. They were charging people crazy amounts of money just to apprentice with them.
Yeah.
And that was definitely not an option for me. So I had gotten the timeline's funny because it's depending on if you want to count the 2 years that it's taken to get the shop built out, it's either a 3 or a 5 year window from the part-time seasonal $10 an hour job I got at Whole Foods to now sitting in my own shop talking to you. But yeah, it was one of those things where I went to work and I just learned as much as I could while I was doing it. And then I would go home and watch every video on YouTube, talk to other people. Then I was lucky enough to get a gig just working for free, basically an apprenticeship at a restaurant that was bringing in whole animals. And it was cool. It was that idealistic restaurant thing that everybody starts with and abandons after a couple of years, but I was in there for that couple of years.
Yeah. Oh no, I know it, working in the wholesale industry because I sell to restaurants like that.
Yeah.
And you meet these very ambitious people, and then you just say, let's talk again in a couple months and let's see how much you're ordering.
Man, they made it like 3 years, and it was so cool. And we got total freedom, and it was just chalkboard menu. Every other week we'd bring in, a full side of beef, every now and then a whole veal, every week whole pigs and one lamb. And it was just play with it. It wasn't even work. It was just, what can you make? And then put it on the menu. And it was so cool and such a valuable experience. But that's what I would do on my days off from the grocery store. Oh, I got my head butcher job that led to this, that got me a lot of recognition. And that was me doing an online search for where do I have to move to be able to do the work that I want to do, because there's nobody doing it in LA. And then I found out about a company that was opening a new shop in LA, and I just immediately emailed them and got, that was the main springboard. I went and applied for a butcher position and ended up with a combo head butcher GM of their butcher shop / restaurant.
Did you have any managerial experience before then?
Oh yeah. No, I was really strong for retail management, and that's what they liked.
Okay.
For me, for the 9 years that I wasn't cutting meat, I managed a Borders bookstore. Remember those?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is, you know, also why I had access to all the books about like conscious eating and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah. For our younger listeners, a Borders bookstore is like an Amazon. That's an actual physical place that caters books.
And books were made of paper.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, as much as I loved books and did that for so long, I do think they're totally unnecessary now in a physical paper form. And they're also not very good as how-to manuals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just tedious and inefficient. We have videos for everything.
Oh yeah. No, like I certainly watch tons of videos. I'm also dyslexic, so I don't really like books. Or I guess I'm dyslexic. I wish I could like books, but I just find the experience too difficult.
Yeah, it would still be a waste of your time.
Yeah. And then, so what experience were you gaining at your last position to ramp up what was the tipping point that's like, all right, I want to open up a shop?
That's always oddly the hardest question for me to answer. There's the honest and easy like go-to answer when a customer asks me like, why'd you open your own shop? And it's like, well, I would sit at home and be like, where am I going to go buy meat that I feel good about, and didn't have any options.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly found myself in the position to be able to do that. But it really just felt like the next logical step for me. Like I just had all this forward momentum. And it was I just leaned in.
And then what was the next step? Business plan, getting investors?
Yeah. Wrote a business plan, had to learn from zero knowledge how to do that. And that was, again, like I watched a lot of YouTube videos and stuff about how to do it, but then I have a handful of friends who own their own businesses. So I asked them, and so many people were so willing to help me out a lot with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was time to like show it to investors. And that was something else that I had to learn how to do. Because everybody that I asked, I was like, how do you get money? Because I didn't have any money. Like,
mm-hmm.
like, and I'm not exaggerating, like where people are like, I didn't have any money. And they're like, they own a house or whatever. Like I had zero money.
Yeah.
And I felt like everybody that I asked, like, oh, how'd you get your start? How'd you get your business running? And they're like, my aunt so-and-so gave me $50,000. And then like all these other people, it just seemed like everyone had family money, and I didn't have that either.
Yeah.
So it was that was a learning experience as well. But I think my experience with finding investors was easier than it is supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah, because I just a picture like you with a portfolio hustling and like an old jalopy, and the song 9 to 5 is playing in the background.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taking and
Oh, thankfully it wasn't like that. I'm a terrible salesman.
Mm-hmm.
Very good at selling this meat because I just get excited about it and people can feel that. But I'm the worst at like that kind of a thing. And luckily I didn't have to do that very much. I have no practical advice for anybody on this. When they're like, how do you get your own business? I'm like, get a little bit Insta famous.
Yeah.
And then like Bon Appetit will write an article about you, and then you just show that to the right person.
Oh, that makes sense. No, certainly on my resume, all the articles I'm in are attached to it.
Yeah, and really, social media, like there are no gatekeepers. Like you can just create the highest quality content you can and just distribute it for free. And it's crazy that we have that access. Like stuff that would have literally cost millions of dollars. Like if you wanted to make a TV show, there would have been so many hurdles and so much money. And now it's like, you can turn your phone around and you're online, like you're live.
I always quote this this guy, Mike Murphy, who the thing with social media and what made me want to do this podcast is what's obvious to you, like what you do every single day, is amazing to others because they don't see it.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I remind myself of that, especially because it's such a short timeline since I was that person who was interested in everything. Like, I mean, stuff that seems so basic was, I can remember that like it was new to me and I was super interested.
So you got your business plan, your investors, you found a location, you're opening, and you open the week before Thanksgiving, which seems like a nightmare.
Yeah, that was not on purpose.
Okay.
It was, I mean, we should have been open like in June and it pushed to November, but that's just the normal, bureaucracy, and like construction problems and all that you anticipate having anyway. I did not sell turkeys for Thanksgiving because it was such a close call. So that at least didn't have to happen.
How many people asked you? How many phone calls did you get a day?
Not too many, since at that point I just kind of soft opened and not a ton of people knew we were there. But I mean, we got a handful of those calls, and it was just very easy to tell them like I would have had to reserve those a couple of months ago, and the timeline was too close to call. And the worst nightmare I can imagine is like reserving a bunch of turkeys and then be like, hey, sorry, small family farm, I'm not actually going to get those. Or what would more likely happen is I would buy them to not screw that farmer over, because that's the opposite of why we're here. And then I'd be stuck trying to like illegally sell a bunch of turkeys or something.
Yeah. And for a listening audience, things that could hold up an opening, I imagine, are paperwork, walkthroughs, just stuff you didn't even know about.
Oh man, totally. Every inspection, like there's no way you pass the first inspection on anything. Like they're gonna call you on something, and then they're gonna come back to reinspect.
They have to justify their jobs.
No, totally, and they're gonna charge you every time they reinspect. And then it's little stuff sometimes. It's really frustrating.
And then now, my understanding is that Department of Health is now requiring shops to have HACCP, but you're not doing any prepared food, so you don't have to deal with that, right?
Yeah, the only HACCP that I should have and don't, and so what we do is just we don't do it. If I were using a vacuum sealer a lot more than I am, I would need that HACCP for that.
For temperature control going into the machine?
I think that's part of it. It's just it's a general like reduced oxygen packaging thing. And so it's like that's one of the checkpoints. We haven't done it yet, but we have a small vacuum sealer that we do use, and then we're in compliance if we only hold it in the bags for 48 hours, put the time on it, and all that. But it's still like, we just don't use it.
All right. Well,
I just hang everything and cut as needed.
What were the big unexpected challenges when opening up your shop?
That's a tough one because, man, it went really smoothly. Because there's the normal boring, like, everything's going over budget and over time and that kind of stuff. But other than that, I mean, I have this business being retail, specifically retail butchery, just on a macro and a micro level, just makes sense. A combination of just a lot of experience and just, I think, DNA that I have that is naturally inclined toward doing it. Pretty much everything went like I imagined it would, even down to after we did a full month's worth of business. I checked the numbers, and that's a small sample size for sure, but I was even getting my projected dollar amount per average dollar per pound on beef and stuff. And I have this amazing team. 2 out of 3 of the guys that I hired, I've worked with in the past. So it was just like the smoothest first day anybody's ever had, where no one's tripping over each other or asking questions. It was like we've always been doing it.
Yeah, you have that built-in idiosyncrasy.
Yeah, and I had so much time because it took so long to get open that like all the little things I had nothing but time to just like figure them out way ahead of time. So it would have just been normal like construction things, like whatever you think it's gonna take as far as time or money, like just triple that.
Yeah,
like there was a sinkhole under the floor and stuff. Like yeah.
LA is a heavy food town, and like you said, there's these restaurants that now have cases in them. I know that the company you used to work for has expanded since you left, and the company I used to work for has since closed. What are you offering at your shop that you could tell the listeners to get them to come to you to set you apart? What's your elevator pitch to be like? Meet me.
Well, I always like to lead, and people can argue this if they want, but I'll win this argument every time. I have the only all whole animal butcher shop in LA, and we only buy whole animals. And there are other people who will say I'm a whole animal shop, and then it's like, yeah, they get whole animals in and their boxed stuff. I don't do that. I run out of ribeyes, and I don't have bacon usually. And I think that, like I was saying, I know I'm way, way, way on the far end of the spectrum, and I'm comfortable there. I'm most comfortable in like a very black and white environment. It's also why we do all pasture raised, 100% grass fed for beef and lamb. But specifically with beef, it's like I'm not out there fighting against grain finished beef by any means, but I'm not comfortable in the gray space. And I would just rather be like, this is all grass. And then I'm not having to be like grass, but only grain for like 100 days or like this much time or this much grain or this kind of grain. And like, I'm just not comfortable there. I just want to be everything cut and dry. So I guess, yeah, sorry. Elevator pitch for the shop is LA's only whole animal butcher shop. All pasture raised, all from small farms here in California. And everything made in house, done by hand. And we have no kitchen, which I know that like, I acknowledge the bubble that I live in. I live in two separate bubbles. One where I am in LA and we have 4 million people here and so many of them are food savvy. And that's not going to be the case. Like if you live somewhere in Wisconsin and want to do this, you're going to struggle or it's going to be impossible. And then the other bubble where I just think that I can do things that other people can't do.
And then what you're talking about your farmers, who are they? Let's talk about who makes this good product or who gives you the raw materials to make this great product.
Yeah, the beef and lamb is coming from Stemple Creek up around like Petaluma, Marin County area. You used to work with their stuff actually back around the same time that I was working with them, maybe like 5 years ago.
Yeah, incredible beef.
Oh, so good. And it's even better now. The way they do their rotational grazing and everything, that land has just gotten better and better every year. And this beef is so consistent and so good.
Yeah. And there's water in California. So no.
And there's water. And actually that farm has, it's sort of immune to that kind of stuff too, because they've got that creek running through it, and they're running 5 solar powered pumps that are pumping the water up to the top of the hills, and then gravity's irrigating. So they have this lush grass year round, even when it doesn't rain, which is cool. Yeah, it's awesome. They've also, last time I was up at the farm, you can see the property line, like where it stops, where it's just super yellow and dead. And then theirs is really lush. And then I don't remember, Lauren said that I don't remember the number, but it might be something like 20 species of native bird had come back to the area since they've been doing that, which is also very cool. Even if it's 12 species, that's cool. But we get pork coming from via Cook Pigs, who's raising their pigs on the Devil's Gulch Ranch. We get pigs from Devil's Gulch, which is up in that same area. And they are also doing rabbits and some small birds. And then we get chickens from Pasture Bird, which is near Temecula, and they're doing the cool, like, Joel Salatin style rolling pens where they move them every day and they get new pasture every day.
Oh, nice.
And that's a cool one too, because they only have, all they sell is chicken, but they have cows and sheep on the property just for the proper grazing. It's very cool to see.
And then what cuts are you doing that people wouldn't be able to find in a regular butcher shop? Or not a regular, in a different butcher shop?
Yeah, no, totally. We do all the conversation starter ones, like because we're pulling pretty much every little cut out of there that you can, because that's the way I can get maximum value.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, I think you've called them that before too, where they're the conversation starters.
Oh yeah,
that walk up.
Yeah, the icebreakers.
What's a velvet steak? Or what's a pecan haw? And then those things. So like we'll do all of those. We're also really heavy on the house-made sausages. That's a big thing, and especially because for what we do without a kitchen, like not being able to make terrines and other kind of fancier stuff or dry cure stuff, we have to focus on VAP. So we've got awesome meatballs. We do all the different sausages and some like lamb, like kofta skewers and stuff like that.
How did you develop these recipes? So it's all your mixing is in house, and
some of them I picked up because I did a lot of different like piecemeal restaurant work and stuff, and then I had a ton of freedom at my last job to just kind of experiment and learn from a lot of other people. But I have two guys here who are a huge resource for that. Anthony, who comes to us from New York, actually used to work at the Meat Hook, and worked with Cara Nicoletti for a while. So he's got some sausage knowledge.
Nice.
And a lot of the recipes for the sausage are his, and they're so on point. And then he just has he has enough experience, enough foundation that I can just be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this was in a sausage? And then he can get the percentages right faster than I would be able to and make something awesome. And then we've got Jose here, who is like the GM, if you will. I never gave him an official title. I asked him what he wanted, and he never said it. But he's my only full-time, salaried employee. But he's got a really strong culinary background. He's still, even though he's salary and he's here 6 days a week, it still helps out at his friend's restaurant because he just loves the work. But he, graduated culinary school, so his techniques are solid, and it's just his passion. So he's just super good with all those kinds of recipes and stuff.
In your casework, I've noticed just online and with your posts that it seems like it's lacking a lot of green and a lot of fat flours. Because I know that there was a period when the fat rows blew up, and you're getting all variations of it online. And so, what's that transition about?
I know, and people still. It's been a couple of years, and people still associate me with that stuff, which is fine. That got me a lot of attention, and I was fortunate enough to have the presence of mind to recognize what was happening when it was happening, and really leverage that attention. And now I don't need to do that anymore. I'd rather hit people with the ethics and how to use a whole animal. And then also there's probably a little bit of just like maturing in my career and not wanting to do as much of that, like those kinds of tricks. It is, I think last time we talked, you had asked if there was some outside pressure.
Yeah.
And that sat with me since then, since you said it, because 100% no outside pressure. I never look to anybody else for their opinions about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't. Actually, if I have outside pressure, it's to do more of that stuff because people liked it so much.
Mm-hmm.
If I cared about Instagram likes, I'd throw some fat flowers in there because I do get considerably less attention, but I don't need it. I'd rather just get attention for the other stuff.
Well, I say for Valentine's Day, you go all out and make fat flower bouquets and.
I kind of like the bacon roses.
Yeah.
There it is. I think also the other stuff that I'm doing, if you look at my posts, is what I'm more proud of and I think is harder to pull off is what I'm just calling intentionally rustic. Because there's a difference between just like slicing something really fast and taking a picture of it.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that like I've left the chine bone on this, or I didn't French this, or I did this kind of thing. But I think it comes across as being intentional. And I find that a bigger challenge for me, and it's more fulfilling than just like lining my knots up really straight and putting a piece of rosemary across the top, which at this point just seems too easy.
I do a lot of what I call rustic cutting. Just because I have to do a lot of it. And
you're way more, you have to be way more sensitive to time and labor and stuff than I have to.
Oh yeah. No, my employees work with a second hand.
The opposite vibe that we have here. It's super casual. You know, what's funny is that it's probably too casual, especially because I pay all these guys a lot more than anybody else. But that comes back to me having, you know, so much respect for what we do in the industry and like not trying to just pay people $12 an hour like a line cook or something.
Yeah, and that brings up a speaking of segues, because the starting pay is what it is. I always find it to the point where it's discouraging, and then people charge astronomical amounts to for apprenticeship programs for people to eventually make not that much money. So what advice do you have people who want to get into this industry? Like realistic advice, you know? Realistic advice.
If money is a major concern, I would go with one of the chain stores. Like if I had kids, I probably would have kept working at Whole Foods. The more you work there, the more benefits you get. The starting pay is pretty decent, and you start to get stock options and all that kind of stuff. And it's not terrible work at all by any means. It's also work that you can do your 40 hours and then go home and not think about it. That's valuable to a lot of people. So that kind of thing is what I would think. Is like the advice I would give. Because there isn't, like, if you want to work in the idealist boutique butcher shop, like the one that I do, unless you work for me, you're not going to make very much money. So I guess my plea would be to the people who are doing this kind of thing. And admittedly, we're 2 months in. We'll see if I have unrealistic ideals, and this is all theory. But when I look at where my priorities are, like what's the most important thing to spend money on, it's the people. Like it's that before the meat even. That's, I think, the best use of my resources. And so, you know, you're probably going to make minimum wage at best, or pay somebody for the opportunity to work for you, or work for free like I did for a year. But not here. My lowest paid part-time guy makes what I made when I was making like the most at the grocery store.
A lot of what you want to do and achieve is education. So what classes are you offering to the general public, and what could they expect in a class?
Yeah, we're doing one tonight actually.
Oh, nice.
We'll see how much coffee I have to have. I got up at 4 to come in here and set up, so that I was set up before we did this. But we're starting off with just demonstration only, not so much hands-on, but we will work into some hands-on workshops. So the one we're doing tonight is a whole hog demo where we'll break down an entire side and demonstrate how we do that pretty much just using just one boning knife and a handsaw.
Okay.
Which people think is really cool. The main focus there to show how little waste there is. Like I'll be able to show just a handful of glands or something that got like, if there's some really gnarly like blood meat or something around the neck, but and just show them like, this is all that we're going to throw away. And actually we're making a ton of dog food lately. So even that stuff's not getting thrown away. But then we're adding in, as the sort of hands-on element, we're adding in a tasting on that. So we're going to do like a vertical tasting, if you will, from the animal, where we'll cook part of the shoulder, the loin, and the leg. So we do copa steaks, loin chops, and then we'll slice up the top round.
Okay.
So everybody can taste a different part to get the different like flavors and textures on one same animal.
Okay.
So all things being equal, you get to taste all the differences. And it's also an introduction to like the less popular cuts. And then the following week, we're going to do the same thing with beef. And I'm just going to do a 4-quarter. We're not going to get into a whole thing. And then the focus on that is all the other fun cuts that aren't ribeyes. Like we'll pull out like Terrace Major and Chuck Eyes and Denver's and, whatever else we can get out of there.
If you were to just do a Chuck demo, people could get lost in that,
Totally. Here's a segue. Jose and I are also, this Monday, we'll start filling it up with content, but the Standings Butchery YouTube channel will be up soon.
Nice. And we'll have a link for that in the show notes.
You'll have a link for that in the show notes if I am actually on top of it, and we have a link worthy of linking to. I mean, the channel's up. There's just no content. But watch the Instagram.
Yeah.
I'll blast it. A Chuck breakdown is definitely a series of videos that I wanted to do first. It's the one thing that most people ask is, how do you get all, like, 'cause we'll get 6 different cuts just out of the Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean Chuck roll when I say that. Chuck, we can get a bunch. Like we're including the whole, what you're probably calling Chuck. Yeah.
You're talking about your dog food and then being this whole idea of sustainability. What products are you making to minimize your waste, if any waste?
Yeah, man, the last 2 weeks, admittedly in the second month of operation, we're now in the third. We had some waste. It was mainly bones that the humidity is a bit high in the walk-in and they just got moldy. And without the ability to roast them off, not having a kitchen first, we did lose some bones. But the last 2 weeks, we just got on a like super tight cut list. Like I said, we're way happier to tell somebody we're out of something than to cut it for them if it results in waste. I think it's too important what we're doing to sacrifice any of that for just trying to please everyone all the time. And so the things that would potentially be waste are like organ meats. It's pretty easy to sell like beef liver, and I'm trying to think the other one, like pork liver. No one's breaking down the door for that, or pork spleen. Like no one's coming in for that. But it's going, so that gets ground into the dog food along with, chicken bones, some lean beef and lamb meat, and the ribs from kale or stems from parsley that we used. So that stuff's not getting thrown away either. And now it really only takes a couple people who buy that stuff in bulk every week to be able to move a ton of dog food. And this is an actual formulated dog food. I know a lot of butcher shops sell a dog grind and it's just their scraps and like it's always different. It's probably got way too much fat or too much organ or too little. I have friends who are highly knowledgeable about this and have been raw feeding for 10 plus years. And so we consulted them, and this has like the proper percentages of everything that it should have in it.
Yeah, my brother raw feeds his dog, and he used to take a cow tripe, a fresh one.
Yeah,
a
the green tripe is the
Yeah.
hardest thing to find right now. But
Yeah. And he would take a green tripe and then empty out the bone saw and put all that bone dust in the tripe and then just feed that to his dog every day.
Yeah. That's sort of what we're mimicking when we grind the chicken bones in.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some sort of bone meal in there.
Yeah. Well, what about I see you have your own broth now, but without a kitchen, how are you able to?
That's a tough one right now because what I did was partner with a company in town called Brothy, who that's all they do. And they actually have a facility that we just ship them bones. And then when we bring bones to them, we pick up the jars of broth that they make, but they have they're certified organic for the other ones that they make, not mine. And so they actually have a USDA inspector on site even. So like they're legit. That being said, they just quit doing business 2 weeks ago. And so I've been just selling bones really cheap, which has worked really well so far, but I don't think that's going to last forever. Where I would just do like an Instagram story blast, like bones are really cheap right now. And then people would buy in huge quantities. But we have a commissary kitchen about 4 blocks away that we have access to. And we just need to figure out how to transport it, and we can use that and make the stuff. And if there are any restaurants that want bones, I'll go super cheap on those too. Incidentally, that commissary kitchen has a smoker that we can use as well. So now we can do smoked sausages and smoked bacon, except I sell an unsmoked bacon that I love, and I don't have any reason to change it because it's super good. And it's very easy. It's just like brine it for 5 days and dry it, and we drop it in the sous vide to cook it off.
One thing I would suggest, and this is for all listeners wondering what to do with your bones, is cut them up small, put them in a pint deli container with some Mirepoix, and then instructions, and that's just someone could be their bone broth starter kit.
Totally. We thought about doing that, and I've got Josh with his young arm, but I don't have a bandsaw.
Oof.
And he'd be hand sawing bones all day.
Yeah.
And you can relate to this. I've got some wrist pain.
Yes.
Like I'm not going to stand and hand saw bones for hours and hours.
Yeah, especially beef bones. And then
Totally.
what's the reasoning behind the bandsaw for our listeners to know that everything they see on your account is all done with a handsaw or knife work and maybe a cleaver?
Yeah, totally. Cleaver, mallet, handsaw, pretty much. A big part of it is just for my own personal enjoyment. I really like working with my hands, and I just prefer to do it that way. It's, I'm just inclined toward the more like artisanal method. But then also, and this is also why I don't have a deli slicer. I am super sick of cleaning bandsaws, and deli slicers for that matter. It's all the like not sexy part of the job that people don't realize is the actual job.
Yeah.
I've just however many tens of thousands of times I've cleaned a bandsaw. Like I'm just done with that.
Yeah. If you're a mechanic, you're going to get grease on you.
I know that's always like, we talk about people who want to like get into the business. I think that especially now with social media, like it looks really sexy. And it's like, once a week, you're going to like at a shop like this, once a week, you're going to break down a whole animal and it's going to look really cool. And it's going to take you like, let's say it takes you 90 minutes, that 90 minutes equals 3 hours of trimming after when you're done. And then
Yeah.
the rest of the week, that's the kind of work you're going to do.
Yeah,
A lot of cleaning.
I have a my shop in my basement, and I have a bandsaw down there. And I think the first time I used it, because for years now I've had a cleaning staff at places I've worked, and I was just like,
Yeah.
fuck this. Like, I don't like using a bandsaw if I had to clean it just for that reason.
It's a big part of the reason. Now, when somebody wants marrow bones, I say yes. And then that's the only time I start thinking, well, maybe like a small one would be okay. But
You have classes, and then what do you offer apprenticeships? And
no, at this point, there are two reasons. There's one reason that it's a no now, and another reason that it's probably a no forever. We're just getting the shop up and running, getting everything dialed in. To train somebody would just be extra work.
Yeah, you'd have to do everything twice in the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it might take 3 times as long if it's the difference between me just doing it or doing it and explaining it to somebody and letting them get some hands on. Like, it just doesn't work with the model. And then the other thing is the other part of that is that, like, the word apprentice just sort of implies master. And I'm never going to say master butcher. And when somebody does tell me they're a master butcher, I'm just like, what does that even mean? And I know there are probably a lot of people listening who are from like the UK and stuff where that actually has a meaning. And that's like,
yeah, it's associated with a master's degree.
Yeah. But I don't know what it is. I mean, I can never imagine being at a point where I'm like, I know it all.
Yeah. I always get weirded out when people would say like chef this, when people would like introduce themselves or expected to be called chefs.
Oh man. Dude, that is the easiest title to just give yourself, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm a chef.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means. Like,
I know.
I'm also weirded out like when people like correct on like prefenses like that. I worked with this USDA inspector who would be like, it's actually doctor.
Oh.
And I'm like,
that makes me want to say Mr. even more.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, all you're telling me is you got your ass kicked in high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, what advice do you have for people who want to get in this industry? We talked about the pay and stuff, but where should someone go and get there to learn whole carcass?
Man, that's probably going to depend a lot on where you live. Like I was saying, if you're in LA, like there, and it's kind of the reason there are no butchers here. There's just nowhere for you to get it, to get the experience. Man, I don't know. You might know better. Like, I don't know if working at like a slaughter facility is the way to go, because almost no grocery store, if you specifically want whole carcass experience, almost no stores are going to get them. I know like Whole Foods here will never get in like a whole lamb or something, but I know that if you're in Florida or Colorado or something, they do sometimes. So that would be a good entry level job. I'm definitely not going to tell somebody to go offer your services for free to a local butcher, because it's the same thing I would tell somebody I can't accommodate. So it's really tough. It's just there's so few available spots.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, I started in slaughter and never realized the skills I was acquiring until other companies wanted me.
And that's what makes the most sense to me. I am very lucky that I didn't have to do that. I did work very briefly in a facility like that, and I cannot hang out in a cold windowless room with the same 5 dudes all the time.
Yeah.
I need customer interaction. I don't mind the cold as much, but I need a window.
Yeah. Me being an
People
introvert.
see the outside.
If I have good tunes playing, I don't care who's in the room. Honestly, that's just me.
Yeah, no, I can't do it.
But how do you feel about apprenticeship programs overall? Because we touch bases about like not paying someone to do this, and then I certainly have opinions about it.
Yeah, no, I fall right in probably right in the middle between paying someone to be their apprentice, which I think is just gross. Like, it just, something about it just doesn't sit right with me. And if the other end of the spectrum is expecting to be paid to apprentice, I'm probably right in the middle, where I think it's totally okay to trade your time for knowledge and work for free. It's what I did. If you can get, like, what I would do rather than an apprentice program, I would hire someone and train them if they had other skills that were valuable. If somebody comes in and they're really strong, like conversational skills, and they are great over the counter, and they have a lot of like food and cooking knowledge, that's awesome. I'll pay them for that. That's providing a ton of value, and then I'll train them. So something like that would be great. But I'm a big, and actually you can tell me how you feel about this. I am a big advocate of trading time for knowledge. So AKA working for free.
I feel apprenticeships are like when people say they did a paid apprenticeship or shops offer a paid apprenticeships, I get it. Like why, but like why they do it. Money's cool and people are willing to spend it. But with not having a defined curriculum that is recognized anywhere from state to state, from shop to shop, it's really a crapshoot what that person's going to be paying for, and what they're going to be able to come out at the end of it with experience. Just as far as what I imagine that shop is getting. You've worked with people, I know for a fact, that have gone through an apprenticeship program at a place I've worked, and the people that were in charge of that may have thought that they were giving them good knowledge, and then you had to deal with what they were, I guess. I don't know. I just think it's I would never charge someone to work directly with me without an expectation of what they're going to get, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way. Like, when we offer classes and workshops and stuff, this is not like, I mean, I see some of those other places that are like, come in and learn this, and we'll give you like a certificate or something of like,
yeah,
I don't even know what you want to call it, but it's like, you went through this course and you're now this certification. Like, what, this is arbitrary, like made up thing. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying, like when someone says I went through a paid apprenticeship, I was like, okay, so you're someone who gets swindled easily. But when we do classes and stuff here, we're selling an experience. We're just having a party. We're hanging out. We're giving people some general knowledge. There's no
expectation for these people to go out and then be a butcher.
Not at all. Yeah. And it's not billed that way or anything. And actually the only hands-on one I've ever done is just whole chicken. And then it's like, yeah, you'll just be more proficient at cutting up a chicken in your house now.
Yeah. And if you do a class and then give them your YouTube link with that hand-on experience, it will actually transfer into something.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think it's really gross. There are different ways to bring in extra cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw a business model once for a place that was that they charged this much for apprenticeship, and if they always had 2 apprentices, that covered their rent.
Good luck.
Yeah, your business plan shouldn't be based on ripping people off.
It also sounds awful for everyone.
Yeah,
on both ends, like unfair to the quote unquote apprentice, and then also just like, God, that just constantly training brand new people. Like,
yeah. And then I've seen like working at a shop, I've seen it like where people would be like, make the apprentices do counter work, and it's like, you're making this person deal with customers. Like, they're not here to learn that shit.
Oh, especially if they're paying.
Yeah.
Like, especially if they're paying you, like, that's like making them basically an employee that is paying to be there is pretty gross.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Oof. Yeah, I'm against the paid apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Also, if you're single, no kids, and you're in your early 20s, play the long game. And if this is something you really want to do, I'd recommend just working just working your way up.
No, exactly what I did. I had my grocery store job that paid the couple bills that I had because, single, no kids. And then I had 2 days off so I could work for free at that restaurant and get all the knowledge. Also, you can really learn a lot from YouTube.
Yeah. And that's something that I've told people, and people keep saying, and it's sincerity that, like, when I was, one thing is, like, when someone asks me something, I never want to say, have the type of personality where I don't want to be like, I don't know the answer. So if I feel like I got into a situation that's either a cut sheet or a job that's over my head, I'm going to watch every single video about it before I have to do it. So
no, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's 2018. The phrase, I don't know, should never, ever even be uttered. It should be, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. That, like, a year ago, I didn't know how to podcast, but I did know how to look shit up on YouTube. So
yeah, someone did that heavy lifting.
Well, I think that goes for most of my questions, but
cool.
Well, first off, where can people find you? What do you want to plug?
Always Instagram. So it's either my personal Jared Standing. That's Jered, not JA, although I think that would probably still get you there. And for the shop, it's Standings Butchery. And soon, Standings Butchery will have a YouTube channel.
That's awesome. And all that information will be in the show notes for everyone.
Cool.
I'm an American boy, come a long way. I was born and bred in the USA. So listen up close, I got something to say. Boys, I'm buying this ring. Well, it took a little while, but we're in this fight. Ain't going home till we're done what's right. Gonna drink Camden.
All right, meatheads, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Meat Block Podcast. Big thanks to Jared Standing. And here at the Meat Block Podcast, we just want to say we wish you the best success out there. I know it is nerve-wracking and starting a business, and you're doing it, and you're paying your employees well, and you have a realistic concept. I hope people view this episode as the chance to get to know you better than just a person on Instagram, to really know your worth ethic and your how you value other people and how you value animals and the products you sell. And if you want to follow the adventures of Jared Standing, head over to Instagram and type in Jared Standing, or head over and type in Standing Butchery. That will all be in the show notes. And if you want to contact us here at the Meat Block, the best way to do that is email us, themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at the Meat Block Pod, or Instagram at the Meat Block. And if you want to talk to our community or be a part of our community where there's a lot of great conversation happening, I would head over on Facebook. Yes, that giant monopoly that is slowly taking over our lives. And type in the Meat Block, and then join our Facebook group. There is a ton of excitement happening over there. If we talk about something on the show that needs a visual aspect, I will post those images over there. I view it as a safe place for the meat industry. I don't tolerate any shittery, I guess. And if you want to contact us individually, let's say Ryan at Gather and Break on Instagram, David, a Farm Butcher on Instagram, and I am a American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to support the show, really the best way to do that right now is stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin. No, just stop what you're doing. Type in the Meat Block in your podcast search device. Leave 5 stars. Leave a comment. That would be awesome. That would make you the bee's knees. Another way to support us is on social media using the hashtag the Meat Block or tagging us on any of our available platforms. Our intro was Ring the Bell. Our outro music is Steve Earle, Johnny Come Lately. And until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.